I want to start this video off by thanking G-Man, my brother in arms, for the shout out. It's greatly appreciated. Helped me get a bunch of new subscribers. Helps me to grow the channel, so I'm incredibly grateful for that. Also, to the people who have recently subscribed through that recommendation, thank you for giving me your time, and I hope this channel proves to be a source of insight and or entertainment. Anyway, moving on to the main attraction. Joyce stops Carlos Takam in the 6th round to defend his position as WBO mandatory challenger. The stoppage, I think most of you know, is mildly controversial, but I'll address that later on in the video. Just to break the fight down, the 3rd round, Takam came out and had the mobility that was to be expected. He came out and elected to go onto the back foot, which is unsurprising. He was moving well, but not excessively, and he really had his same typical jittery style, and because of that, Joyce was really content to just probe and prod Takam with the lead left hand. Takam attempted some wide left hooks and right hands, especially over Joyce's jab, which landed, but had no effect. Of course, Joyce is renowned for his chin and his toughness, but nevertheless, it was a clear Takam round in my book. Round 2, Takam came out with his decent head movement, especially as Joyce was attempting the 1-2. Takam would attempt to follow in as Joyce brought back his straight shots. Takam would come in low in an attempt to get to the body and land some decent shots. Joyce, though, despite that success from Takam, Joyce was able to start to catch Takam in his final position after Takam was moving his head. Joyce showing that rather than punching the target that is Takam's head while it's moving, why not wait for it to reach its final position and then punch? And he was able to catch Takam with a couple of right hands through that, so it shows that Joyce was engaging his brain, even though people do dispute his boxing IQ. Joyce was getting closer in this round, but for me, still another round for Takam. So the 3rd round, quite clearly, Joyce was upping the pace, throwing a greater volume of straight shots, trying to really bridge the gap between himself and Takam. From what I saw of Takam, he slowed down quite a bit, and I think that was potentially from some body shots by Joyce. And Takam was also momentarily buzzed in the last couple of seconds, so round 3 was a clear Joyce round for me. Round 4, a good first half of the round for Takam, but Joyce is pretty consistent with the body shots at this point, and a bit of wrestling also mixed in there from Joyce, and you have to imagine that that was really sapping the energy of Takam. Kind of a little bit of a quiet round, but a round that Takam edged for me, even though Joyce did land some clean body shots. Round 5 was a quiet round again, at least in comparison to the rounds that came prior. For me, Takam looked heavy on his feet, and Joyce just had better activity, a bit more accurate, a bit more active, and that got him the round for me. Now, the 6th and final round, very sharp 1-2 and a left hook in the first 5 seconds sends Takam reeling towards the ropes, and Joyce just follows up with dozens of hooks and uppercuts to the body and the head. Takam's trying to punch in between them, but he's just being overwhelmed after a certain point. And the referee jumped in after Takam was made to stumble again for, I think it was a right hand and a left hook from Joyce. And that was it, the fight was over. So it followed the pattern that I thought it would. For those of you who saw my pre-fight video, I thought the fight would end in the 10th. I thought it'd go on a little bit longer, but we'll get on to that. I predicted that Takam would take the first 3 rounds, but then after that, Joyce would wake up a little bit and become a bit more mobile and a bit more dynamic and start to set his shots up well and go through the gears and just wear Takam down until the later rounds. But obviously this goes back to the stoppage. Takam was noticeably disappointed at the stoppage, and to be honest, I can't blame him. As I say, the fight unfolded as I thought it would, though I expected the stoppage to come later. But I do think the stoppage does what it warrants debate, in my opinion. Because yes, Takam was in his shell and he'd stopped replying with shots, and he's kind of buzzed. But Takam is a very tough and very experienced fighter. He's been in there with massive punchers, some of the best guys in the heavyweight division, and he hadn't even been knocked down in the fight. He stumbled a couple of times and he was taking some shots, but he still had his guard up. And from what I could see, yeah, he was buzzed. He was, maybe a little bit foggy. He'd just been stung with some good shots, would you expect? But he wasn't completely drunk. He wasn't stumbling. His head was, there's like a floppy look to fighters when they've been seriously hurt and they're incapable of defending themselves. I didn't see that in Takam. So I can definitely understand why he'd feel hard done by. So yeah, the stoppage I think was a little bit soon. I think the referee should at least given him a few more seconds, see if Takam takes a knee. Maybe give him a standing 8 count if that was permissible for this match. So yeah, stoppage wasn't great in my opinion, but I can definitely see Joyce being able to go through the gears from there, because say it went into the 7th round. Joyce, in the beginning of the 6th, it was like literally the first 5 seconds of the 6th round, and Joyce had already hurt him. So maybe he would have been able to replicate that success in the next round or the round after that, and so on. So I think Joyce definitely had a firm grip on the fight by that point. But I'd like to see, yeah, it's not a world title fight or a fight for some major accolades, but it was for the the #1 position in the WBO. So yeah, I can understand why Takam feels hard done by. So yeah, that's the fight in a nutshell. It was really quite easy to break down, and I guess on to the next one. I do agree with Josh Taylor. His commentary after the fight, he was quite critical of Joyce's performance, and I can understand why. Those of you who've listened to many of my videos, even though there aren't many to listen to, I'm a Joyce fan. I enjoy watching Joyce. I feel like he's definitely one of the most underrated heavyweights around today. I believe that his skill set is underrated. But what I will also add is that I think maybe Joyce is losing some momentum. In my opinion, and some people may scratch their heads at this. In my opinion, Joyce's best performance thus far was his performance against Bryant Jennings. And a lot of people actually feel like Bryant Jennings won that fight. I don't. I think it was a firm and clear Joyce win. And I felt that was his most complete performance in his career thus far. And since then, I think he's kind of almost downgraded a little bit. He still has skill, don't get me wrong, but I have the memories of how dynamic and mobile he was in that Jennings fight, and he just mixed it up so well. And that's what I like to see in a fighter, whereas he's kind of reduced to a lesser version of himself in the Dubois fight and in this Takam fight. And maybe people argue he's just fighting better guys now, but I'd maintain that it doesn't necessarily, don't get me wrong, the level of opposition you fight is important, but the technique that you employ, I don't think that should change too much, unless you're in with an opponent who physically obstructs you and restricts you from using that technique. But I don't think that's the case. The things that Joyce does well, he should be able to maintain that against all his opposition. So personally, I think it may be an issue that who he's training with. I think is the guy's name Stephen Broughton. I know his surname's Broughton. I can't remember his first name. I think it's Stephen. I don't know this guy. I'm not sure how experienced he is as a professional coach, but he seems to be heading up Joyce's training setup now, and I'm just not sure if he's adding anything to Joyce, and maybe he's even dumbing Joyce down. I'm going to reserve my judgment for now, but I think it's probably likely. So yeah, that's my assessment on this fight. Of course, Joyce is now kind of in pole position to fight the winner of AJ versus Usyk, probably assuming that there's no rematch after that fight, which potentially is likely. depending on who wins, but also seeing whether the winner of Fury Wilder 3 fights the winner of AJ Usyk, which is of course another avenue. But if we are to weigh up, or if I'm to weigh up and compare Joe Joyce to Usyk and Joshua, I don't think Joe Joyce, and look, I'm a Joe Joyce fan, but I don't think he does well against those guys. Usyk obviously beat Joyce in the WSB, and I think AJ obviously is familiar with Joyce. I think Joyce is a fun fighter in my opinion. I love watching him, but I don't give him the greatest chance against either of them. But nevertheless, he should go for his shot, and it'd be interesting to see. But yeah, that's just kind of my opinion on Joe Joyce right now. I do like watching him, but I do feel like maybe he's regressing a little bit. If not regressing, maybe going a bit stagnant. But yeah, I'm just waffling at this point. Let me know what you think of this fight down below in the comments. We can discuss it. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. To new subscribers, welcome to the channel. Thank you, G-Man, again. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next video.